Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, co-founder of Glow Recipe, and today we're here to do another deep dive of our ingredient, hyaluronic acid, which is in just about all of the Glow Recipe products that we have. So today we brought on an expert to share more about this ingredient and how it can actually benefit your skin. So here with me today, I have board certified dermatologist who's also on our diversity board, Dr. Elyse Love.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Love. I'm a board certified dermatologist and I practice both medical and cosmetic dermatology in New York City. I'm super excited to talk to you guys about hyaluronic acid today.
Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Love. We wanted to start off by covering the basics. So the first question is, what is hyaluronic acid and how does it work?
Excellent question to start with. So hyaluronic acid is a naturally occurring compound that exists in the deeper layer of the skin, the dermis of the skin. And what it is it's what's called a humectant, which means that it binds water and it holds on to water. Sometimes people think hyaluronic acid is related to like salicylic acid or glycolic acid, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. It is not an exfoliating ingredient. It's actually a very hydrating and somewhat soothing ingredient.
And where does hyaluronic acid come from?
So hyaluronic acid is a naturally occurring compound, which means that we every single day make hyaluronic acid naturally. However, in skincare, and it's also found in filler products, this is usually a lab-derived hyaluronic acid. Where does the Glow Recipe hyaluronic acid, how is it derived?
So that's a really good question. In Glow Recipe, we have hyaluronic acid in pretty much all of the products. But our recent launch, the Plump Hyaluronic Serum, has a blend of multiple hyaluronic acids, which are derived from either the labs or tremella mushroom. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this ingredient, but it's a very antioxidant-rich ingredient. So we made this hyaluronic acid really special by fermenting this ingredient and making it into hyaluronic acid.
So I wasn't familiar with that mushroom before kind of my introduction to Glow Recipe, but I am finding that in skincare, we're moving from that like purely lab-based approach to like kind of finding naturally derived and fruit or vegetable derived alternatives also. So, and I know that's a big point in Glow Recipe.
Yeah, we're really passionate about finding new, natural, clean, alternative ingredients that don't necessarily have to come from the labs. So now I want to talk about how hyaluronic acid works in your skincare routine. Who can benefit from hyaluronic acid?
So because hyaluronic acid is really a hydrating ingredient, most people can benefit from hyaluronic acid in their skincare routine at some point throughout the year. Of course, the people who are going to be most drawn to hyaluronic acid are people who report that their skin is dull or their skin just is dry and not holding on to the moisture in their moisturizer well. But we live in 2020 and the dewy look is really in, so even people with normal skin or almost oily skin also kind of want that dewy appearance.
That's a really good point. Would you recommend hyaluronic acid for sensitive skin and acne-prone skin as well?
So for acne-prone skin, what you always have to remember, it's not just the ingredient, it's how the ingredient is formulated. And so hyaluronic acid itself is perfectly fine for acne-prone skin, but you just want to make sure that it's in a water-based formula, because water-based formulas will not clog the pores, whereas oil-based formulas tend to clog the pores. I think the Glow Recipe is water-based.
Yeah, it's water-based. The Plump hyaluronic acid is actually oil-free. So it's completely water-based, and it's a very interesting innovation because we were able to find the plum juice kind of be the base as well and work in conjunction with the hyaluronic acid blend.
Yeah, so that's perfect for acne-prone skin.
So what are the benefits of multi-molecular weights of hyaluronic acid, and how does the molecular weight affect the way it works?
Plump and moisture gives you different effects at different layers of the skin. In dermatology, we use hyaluronic acid as a type of filler product. And what we find with that is that you get kind of blurring of fine lines and wrinkles. Traditionally in skincare, hyaluronic acid has been used as high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, which means that it sits on the top of the skin and it gives you increased hydration. So low molecular hyaluronic acid is, I wouldn't say it's a hybrid between the two, but you do get more of that absorption into a deeper level of the skin. And so you are getting more of a plumping effect than just a hydration effect. So Sarah, why did you guys choose to include multiple hyaluronic acids in the plumping serum.
So you just explained it really well, Dr. Love, because we were looking for a serum that could actually plump your skin. And by plumping, you kind of defined it earlier, you're blurring the fine lines, whether it's your smile lines or different parts of your face. So we really focus on how we can penetrate and fill, again, the deep layers of the skin with hydration. And the best way to do so was by using multi-weight hyaluronic acid, but also pairing that with ingredients that can boost that even further, and Plum was the best partner for it. So next, I'd love to discuss some of the myths out there about hyaluronic acid. There's so many stories, so many different opinions, and I just wanted to get that expert opinion from you. The first question is, can hyaluronic acid cause sensitivity, specifically that of low molecular weight?
So that's a very good question. There have been what we call in dermatology anecdotal reports of people reporting irritation with their hyaluronic acid product. And there's also been some question about, can low molecular weight hyaluronic acid be irritating just in itself? But what we know about skincare, and especially skincare formulation, is that there's always two components. There is the active ingredient, and then there's what the active ingredient is formulated in. And the reality is, a formulation, we call it a vehicle in dermatology, can either enhance the irritating properties of an ingredient or kind of neutralize those properties. So what I recommend for anyone who has particularly sensitive skin is that you always patch test it on your wrist to see how your body responds to it before starting it on your face. And always starting your skincare routine slowly, just a couple of days a week. And never start more than one skincare product at the same time, because again, in the same way that an ingredient interacts with a vehicle, different skincare products can interact with each other too. So it just kind of becomes a little confusing. But in general, most hyaluronic acids are actually formulated for people with sensitive skin, for people with dry skin. And so they tend to be pretty soothing and pretty easy to tolerate.
So speaking of interaction, are there ingredients, in your opinion, that don't work well with hyaluronic acid?
Hyaluronic acid is probably among the easiest ingredients to add into your skincare routine because it really, for the most part, plays very well with most active ingredients. Of course, like I said, you don't want to introduce your skin to multiple ingredients at the same time, but in general, it can be added to a routine in morning, at night, or both pretty easily.
Another myth is that hyaluronic acid is a humectant, so it can pull moisture from the skin. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that is a theoretical thing that can happen with hyaluronic acid if it's not given what it needs. Because again, remember that hyaluronic acid needs to bind to moisture. And so if you're putting it directly onto your skin, it's a theoretical possibility that it could absorb some moisture from your skin. To prevent this and to just optimize the product that you're using, I do recommend that you use it after other serums so that you have a base layer of moisture, and also right before moisturizer, so it is given everything it needs, and so it more pulls moisture into the skin versus pulling moisture outside of the skin.
So another question that I personally had, and this is a question that a lot of our Glow Gang members have asked too, is how some ingredients work with another ingredient. So for example, does hyaluronic acid work well with vitamin C or retinol or some acids like BHA or PHA?
Yeah, so hyaluronic acid doesn't enhance the benefits or decrease the benefits of any active ingredient, that be vitamin C, retinol, or AHAs. What it can do, however, is all of those ingredients that you mentioned are very irritating, and sometimes they can be drying to the skin. And so sometimes adding a hyaluronic acid can help you tolerate those ingredients a little bit more often in your skincare routine. Because if anyone's ever started a retinol, you know that the most limiting kind of factor in increasing how often you use it is how dry your skin gets. And so if you're using something that helps increase your hydration, then you're more likely to be able to tolerate your retinol more often, or even a stronger version of the retinol.
That's great, because we have hyaluronic acid in all of our products. The next question is, who, if anyone, should avoid hyaluronic acid?
I would say people who definitely do not want increased moisture to the skin should avoid hyaluronic acid. And then anyone with rosacea or very sensitive skin should just patch test the product on their wrist before trying it, because people with sensitive skin tend to get the most benefit from hyaluronic-like products, but they're also very sensitive, and so they should just test it on the back of their wrist before trying it.
But who wouldn't want extra moisture? So does that mean everybody should be using hyaluronic acid?
I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, I'm really into like the dry, parched skin look, you know?
You never know.
Good for you. Yeah.
We already spoke about this briefly, but how do I know if I'm sensitive to this ingredient?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because again, it's very hard. In dermatology, we do something called patch testing, and that's when we specifically test patients to different common ingredients in skincare products, and we can actually tell if they're allergic to an ingredient or sensitive to an ingredient. Beyond patch testing, to specific ingredients, it's very hard to say whether or not you're sensitive to an ingredient or if you're sensitive to a specific formulation. And so what I would say is, if you've tried multiple products with hyaluronic acid and you always get a rash, you always get irritation, then it's likely that you're sensitive to that specific ingredient. If you've tried one product and you were irritated by it, but then you unknowingly have multiple products in your skincare routine that have hyaluronic acid, you're probably not allergic or sensitive to that specific ingredient. And I would say, I know with Glow Recipe, you guys have hyaluronic acid in many products. And so if you're tolerating other Glow Recipe products, you're probably not sensitive to hyaluronic acid specifically, even if you've had trouble with other hyaluronic acids.
To wrap up, I'd love to hear your point of view on hyaluronic acid as a board-certified dermatologist. So my question would be, would you recommend hyaluronic acid? And if so, why?
As a dermatologist, I audit all of my patients' skincare routines, and probably the ingredient or the product that I let them keep the most often is a hyaluronic acid serum, because I really do find that it's mostly benefit with very little drawback to them, especially because I tend to prescribe a lot of very drying or irritating ingredients. So it helps them kind of tolerate things that are going to give them extra benefit. And for people that I recommend adding the hyaluronic acid, it's typically people who come in, particularly in the fall and the winter when the seasons are starting to change and their skin is feeling dry, is feeling tight, their moisturizer just isn't doing it. And so we'll add a hyaluronic acid and a heavy moisturizer to their routine. Those are the times that I recommend a hyaluronic acid. But again, it's really one of those ingredients that most people get benefit from it, and it's pretty harmless, and so I am perfectly okay and also in support of hyaluronic acid.
Thank you so much for answering all of these questions, Dr. Love. If anyone has additional questions about skincare or wants to find out more about what you do, where can they find you?
So you can always find me on my Instagram. It is at Elyse Love MD, and I specifically like to answer questions at least once a week, your personal questions.
Do you prefer DMs or comments?
So I do Ask Me Anythings, so check my stories on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and there's always an Ask Me Anything box, so you can learn from other people's questions, and I will also answer your personal questions.
Thanks for watching, and you can also follow us on Instagram or here on this YouTube channel for more educational skincare content. Get your glow on!
Bye guys!